Yo, what is up, everybody? And today we're gonna do a video about the verge and how to build the computer. Guys, disclaimer: this is not an education. That is not educational purposes, and not that kind of stuff. That is part of the disclaimer. And yeah, just watch the video. So YouTube, if you find this video, please don't strike my videos. If you do, I'm gonna be so upset and I'm gonna quit. But guys, I know you guys don't want me to quit. I know that you don't want me to quit YouTube. So yeah. Let's go ahead and watch the video from the Verge and how to build a computer. So by the way, this is the re-upload video right here. And this is made by that channel. This is re-uploaded by this channel right here. I don't know why I did this. Okay. So let me just take this back and okay. Now 3, 2, 1.
So a few years ago, TC, or managing editor, built a gaming desktop, but it's kind of out of date and it's
Stream engine.
definitely not going to hold up for Battlefield 5. So let's build a new one. You can build a gaming desktop for around $1,000, but I want to go all out, so I spent around $2,000. PC like this is going to be able to play most games at ultra settings. So what do you need to build a desktop? Well, of course, first you need a table. Preferably not metal.
Well, when it comes to building a computer, it's very important to have a table that is not soft or something that can shock you when you build a computer that is kind of soft or something that can affect some material to the static electricity. So the only table you need is just wood or something that doesn't shock you when it comes to static electricity. But if you have a table that is metal, don't build a computer on it, please. Because I don't want you guys to build a computer on a metal table. Otherwise, other shocks will burden to the motherboard and all that kind of computer parts if you use it on a metal table.
If it's going to be metal, have an anti-static working surface layered on top of it, a thermal paste applicator, an Allen wrench.
Wait, what? No, you don't need any of these tools. Like, what did I say? Yeah, you still need a thermal paste applicator. And the next one was Allen wrench. You don't need an Allen wrench because all computer parts need a screwdriver to just screw them in. That's all you need. Screwdriver, the little thing that cuts the cable ties if it's too tight enough. You know, yeah. So guys, if you went to my gaming channel, I will do a live stream about me building a computer, so yeah. So let's how this thing goes.
Some tweezers to tighten up the wires, a Swiss Army knife.
You need cable ties, which is perfect, so you just manage your cables.
Which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it. And
wait, what? You don't need a knife in the computer. Like, seriously? You only need a knife just to unbox the components. That's it. You don't need to just cut something out on a computer. You know, it's gonna be bad if you cut something on a computer.
last but not least, an anti-static bracelet, which is to protect you.
Why did you call it an anti-static bracelet? The Verge? Really? Like, you know, they didn't. Most people like Bitware or Texas or Pulse Hardware, they don't call it a anti-static bracelet. They call it a anti-static wrap. That's all they call it.
And the parts. These are the parts you're going to need, but more importantly, before we get there, we need to understand what these parts are doing and how they interact with one another. To better understand the parts that make up a desktop, let's try to understand them individually. The processor is like the computer's brain, a base of calculations.
Listen, I know the processor is what the computer is doing, but the best choice for an answer when you are trying to answer the quiz when it comes to computers, the brain part of the computer. That's how the processor is doing on a computer. It's the brain part of the computer. the brain part.
That control everything the computer does. The motherboard is like the foundation, serving as a mainstream.
The motherboard is the main part or the hub part of the computer where all the other components went into the motherboard just to interact with all the other components and to make all the components working and working with each other. You know, the CPU's in the middle, the RAM has like 4 write slots and stuff, and all the RAM that's filled with the right color but more I can't do that. And in the ports, I don't know why the Verge put like in the bottom. I don't know why. You know, it's pretty good when it comes to motherboard and computers.
Structure for all of the parts to be added to. It also allows the other parts to communicate with one another, which also makes it kind of like a nervous system. Graphics cards are responsible for rendering and
Yep, graphics cards are the part of the computer board, but it sends video from the motherboard to the graphics card, so you do not need an integrated CPU graphics. So if you run a game at 1080p 60 frames per second, you can just use a graphics card. But with a integrated graphics, there's no way you can game on it. You can't do that.
and processing visuals into what you see on screen. Our PC's power supply is of course channeling electricity, in that it adjusts.
Yep, that's true. A power supply is the component that sends electricity to other components, but it powers a motherboard, CPU, like all the parts of the motherboard, even the graphics card, hard drive, SSDs, everything. Could be everything else, or fans, and stuff like that.
Adjusts and provides the right amount of energy to keep it running. Last but not least, RAM, or random access memory, and
Yep, RAM is called random access memory, so yeah.
your hard drive are good examples of short-term and long-term memory, respectively. If you want to better understand what kind of computer to build, then first figure out what you want to use it for. A gamer might care more about a graphics card than, say, a video editor who might want extra RAM to assist with editing large files.
Well, for video editing, you need to have at least 6 cores, at least 32 gigabytes of storage space when it comes to video editing. But if you want to go for at least 4K or 8K video editing, you must have at least like 64 gigabytes to 128 gigabytes of RAM with a 8 core to 16 core 12 thread, no, 16 threads, or 16 core with 32 threads, which is perfect.
If you're building a budget build for video streaming, say under $1,000, you want to focus.
Well, when it comes to video streaming, that's perfect. If you guys want to stream, you need a powerful CPU. You need at least 6 or 8 core CPUs and stuff. That's how it does for streaming to YouTube, Twitch. Oh, what? Sorry guys about that. Okay, hold on.
Parts, like a Core i5 or Core i3 processor, that require less energy. They'll be less powerful, but then you'll be able to scale back the cost of several other parts. And if you need help choosing the right parts for your build, there's sites like PCPartPicker.com that help show presets for which parts fit together, which sort of part conflicts you might have, and where to find deals on new parts. We have a lot of boxes and a lot of PC parts, so it's best for you unbox.
Nope. When it comes to that guy who is like unboxing before they build, I do not recommend taking stuff outside the box before you build. So once you got the motherboard, CPU, and RAM, put the CPU in the motherboard, RAM on the motherboard as well. Put it in the, just unbox the case, stand out into it, motherboard into it, just screw the motherboard in, and just. Oh, also, one thing I forgot is before you just plug in the motherboard into your case, is the IO shield. So, yeah, before you open up another item and stuff like that.
Them, isolate the parts that you really need, place items into the case, and make sure that they all fit, and then start working. And now we're really going to start building by adding the motherboard in. Some notes about installing motherboards: they're really delicate, you should be really careful with them. And screw in with confidence, but also don't screw in too hard, otherwise you could crack the board. I chose Asus's Z370 motherboard for two main reasons. One, it has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
Asus Z390. That's a good board.
And also it has support for
But I've never experienced that board before.
NVMe SSDs, meaning you can get really fast SSDs that are really easy to install. Pay close attention to the brace that goes at the back of the computer. You always have to make sure that you really hammer it in, because there's no screw. It really just has to go outside of the case and clasp onto the frame. And this is very important because otherwise you can't align the motherboard correctly with the holes. We're just going to start installing all 8 screws.
No, what? Oh, I thought there's no standouts in the case.
So next we're going to install the RAM on the motherboard. I chose Corsair's 16GB Vengeance LED RAM for two main reasons. One, it has LEDs and we do like lights in our gaming desktops. Secondly, it's pretty fast RAM. It's 2666 megahertz, I believe. So it's pretty fast.
No, listen. 2666 megahertz isn't enough for video editing, streaming, but the best way to do video editing and streaming and recording at the same time, like as a content creator, you need at least 3000 megahertz or 3.1. No, hold on, 36 or 3400, even 4000 megahertz RAM, which is perfect. But you know, 2666 isn't enough. But, well, kind of.
And this motherboard supports that speed, which is most important. Open the slots first, and just aligning the stick with the middle of the strip, not with the end, and just lining.
Listen, when it comes to downloading, when it comes to inserting the RAM to the motherboard, you have to open up A2, B2 on the motherboard, because if you do A1 and B1, your computer's gonna tell you that you put on a wrong memory slot. That's how that was.
That up with the logo. So once you hear that solid clasp and you don't see the gold connectors on the side anymore, that's when you know the RAM is in. Step 3, we're going to install the hard drive, or in this case, the NVMe SSD. I chose this format of solid state drive so that I could input it into the motherboard without having to worry about
the verge. Before you put the motherboard in, you need to have the motherboard on top of the box. That's all you need to put. Before you put the CPU, before you put the RAM on the CPU cooler at the same time. Listen, if you guys want to see me building a computer, you will see me building a computer compared to him. Do you think that I'm better than him? We will find out by the time I'm in the live stream by building a computer. Alright guys? I'm thinking if I'm better than him. Way better than Polished Hardware, Bitrate, Texas. I think I'm better than everybody who builds computer. Except for people who knows even more than me. Cause I know 100%, but maybe they know like 100,000. I don't know. Let's watch it. Let's watch the video.
extra wires or putting it in a separate part of the case and just getting really messy. This is from Kingston and it's 480 gigabytes, so it's not a lot, but you can always upgrade this and swap it out, and it's only held down by one screw and the latch, so it's really simple and really straightforward. Speed for gaming is important when it comes to a hard drive. You want files to write quickly and you want games to load quickly, so that's why it's best if you use an SSD. Okay, so step 4, we're going to install the graphics card. I chose PNY's.
Before you put the graphics card in the computer, you need to figure out where are the very tiny annoying pins into the motherboard before. Because first you gotta put the HD audio, USB 2, USB 3s, power, reset, hard drive LED, power, and every single kind of pins. You have to do it first before you put the graphics card. Otherwise, you're gonna be kind of blind like me, and like you can't see the pins and stuff. Like really.
GTX 1080, which is overclocked. And so it's a pretty easy installation. You're just going to find the gold connectors, and you're going to line this bracket with the back end bracket of your PC case. Now, which lane you choose depends entirely on what other parts you're going to put in the system. I'm just going to pick the top one because the SSD is at the bottom and I don't want to cover it. I just think it looks nice. Click down. Take your remaining brackets and just put them in the spots that you haven't used. You don't have to screw these in. They get bolted down by the back-end bracket. And your GPU is installed. Power supply time. I chose Corsair's 850 watt power supply because I need enough headroom for ray tracing GPUs when they come out, and I don't want to have to upgrade it again. So all you have to do is take the brick and make sure that you align it with these little insulating pads so the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact with the rest of the system. So just take it in.
No. The verge. Why do you put the fan facing to the motherboard tray and have no fan facing out where the fan was at on that computer case? If you have a case with a power supply on the left side when you look in the back of the computer and the graphics card I/O and the motherboard I/O on the right, the fan should be, let's say this one's the side panel and this is the fan blown, hold on, let's say this one instead, and this so that the fan is blown this way, you have the fan go on this side. That's how it's supposed to be. And if you have that kind of case, there's no fan glows in the bottom. Except for my computer that I'm about to build pretty soon. Jeez, man. The verge is gonna have a lot of issues, and it's gonna overheat the entire motherboard, and it's gonna kill the entire computer. And it wasted $2,000.
Slide it in nice and easy until you have a snug fit, and then shift it to the back and make sure it's right up against the frame. Now you just take the required screws and you tighten and screw in. So next step, we're going to install the CPU core. In this case, it's going to go on the top end of the case, and we're just going to have the hose hang out for a little while until we install the processor, which is going to come a little later. Always be sure to try to place it in the system first before you install it, because you can see it takes up a lot of space.
No. The verge is putting the radiator first before you put the fans. That's annoying. Before you put the radiator, put the fans on it before the radiator. Like, I'm very serious about that, man. Very serious. Man, if you do this first, it's gonna be very annoying to just put the fan, like, you gotta hold it, just put the screws on it. That is the most annoying part. Really, I'm not very happy at the verge. But you know what? I do not subscribe to the verge at all. If you the people subscribe to the verge, never subscribe to him. Leave him alone. Don't let him make videos. Ignore his videos. Go to other people. Don't watch the verge, cause the verge doesn't show enough, or doesn't do a proper computer board is built with tech source and parts hardware.
But in this case, no pun intended, it fits in perfectly, and we're gonna start screwing it in. And so there's nothing special about this screwing in process. They're just really long screws because they go through the entire frame of the cooler, and they take forever. So
Nope, they don't take forever. They just, it takes a couple seconds and you just screw the screws in.
Next up, cables. Every power supply is going to come with a big bag of Velcro cables. It's kind of daunting at first, so you always have to find the ones that are going to fit. In this case, you need to match those cables with the correct descriptions on the power supply. Next step is we're connecting the power supply to the motherboard with a 24-pin cable. we're just matching that cable from the motherboard, threading it through the back, and attaching the 24-pin header to the power supply so that we can the brain, depending on how you look at it. So to do this, we're just going to remove the plastic covering that they put on the motherboard. We're just going to take this little plastic part out. We'll just toss that out of here. And now we have an...
Wait, what? Is that a CPU pin or something? I didn't see that.
Exposed CPU holder, or rather slot.
Wait, what?
We have an outpost.
He didn't install the CPU. That is the only missing part, except for maybe the hard drive or SSD. That is a missing part. Dude, man, nah.
CPU holder, or rather slot, on the motherboard. And we're going to use the CPU applicator. This is a special little part that not everyone may get, but this motherboard that we got from ASUS definitely does have. It's called a CPU installation tool. It makes it really useful if you want to install a Core i7 hexa-core CPU. Yeah, we've got one, and it's an 8th generation chip, and it's ready to go, and it supports overclocking. So what having this little installer does for you is it's basically a brace that you can apply.
No. Nope. The CPU installation kind of guide or something that helps the CPU to not get in the way out of the motherboard. It helps the CPU into the trying to make it into the socket. They don't like, you know, what the verge you're talking about.
Right to the CPU and light it up with the triangles that you'll see on the bottom left corner.
Be very careful.
And this will make it easier for us to apply it to the motherboard and then apply thermal paste and then apply a CPU cooler on top. And we're just going to carefully lean it down into the system and make sure that everything lines up, and we're going to clasp down on it and we'll be good to go. So we're about to apply thermal paste to the CPU. Every CPU cooler actually comes with a bit of thermal paste already neatly applied in a circle around it, but it's usually not enough. It's good, essentially PC building practice to have a little bit extra and layer it on top of the CPU.
No, that is way too much thermal paste. If you're installing a new CPU on a computer, you just put a pea-size thermal paste. That's all you need. You don't need that kind of the verge style thermal paste thing.
The final portion is to add the CPU cooler to the top end of the processor. So you're going to see that there are 4 brackets, or rather like screws in here with brackets and holders right here. And they're going to keep the cooler raised off. So a few years ago, TC, or managing...
Hold on. Give me 1 second.
The final portion is to add the CPU cooler to the top end of the processor. So you're going to see that there are 4 brackets, or rather like screws in here with brackets and holders right here.
Before you put the motherboard into the case, you have an external cooler that you need to have better than an Intel/AMD heatsink. You just put a bracket back. You just put a bracket in the back of the motherboard and just align the holes. Then you just flip the motherboard while you're holding the bracket, then let it go. Just put the screws in, then put the screws in, depending on the manufacturer, the instruction manufacturer.
And they're going to keep the cooler.
With AMD heatsinks, you have to just unscrew the black tabs. I don't even know, like the one back in the day, you just install an old CPU and stuff. You just take it out and just put the bracket into an AMD side bracket. You know, you have to follow the instructions.
They're raised off the processor, but it's also going to be close enough to actually physically come in contact with it, like basically keep it cool. Take thumb screws like this and just screw them on. So now that our internals are done, we're going to put all the panels back on, which is the top glass, side glass, front glass, and of course the back panel where all of this fun stuff is happening.
You see, look at the triangle that is in this part of the case underneath the red line.
So we fully built the PC. Everything's put together, and we got to the post screen. So what's next? Well, you need a USB flash drive with your Windows installation media on it, and of course, a license key.
Wait, what? How did that work? With the power supply facing to the motherboard, a lag of thermal paste in the CPU, memory in the wrong slot. And how did it work? Are you serious, The Verge? How could you make that work? Do you use like coding or hacking the motherboard just to make it work? How do you do that? The Verge, if you're watching this video, comment down how do you make this work? I know you put the memory in the wrong slot. I know you put the power supply in the fan that faces to the motherboard as an intake, which is bad.
So I plugged that up, installed Windows,
But the power supply fan that faces to the motherboard tray, it's gonna blow up your computer and it's gonna fire up your components, or it's gonna make the computer caught on fire.
couple of minutes, installed a bunch of drivers, and now we have a fully functioning gaming.
Well, not really a bunch of drivers, but if you're trying to install a motherboard driver, you need just a LAN driver, chipset driver, and kinda maybe a audio driver, maybe. And if you're trying to update the graphics card driver, you need just an NVIDIA driver or an AMD graphics card. An NVIDIA drivers goes with an NVIDIA graphics card, or for example a GTX 1050 Ti, for example. If you're going for an AMD graphics, it's only AMD's compatible graphics. NVIDIA's going for NVIDIA compatible graphics card. You just need one driver for each graphics card. You don't have to do it in each, but you don't have to buy too much.
PC ready to run some games. Right now I've got Armor 3 running at maximum settings, native resolution, which is 1080p HD, and it's running pretty smoothly. Like, I'm averaging 70 and 80 FPS, and this is normally like a very intensive game to run, and it's still doing a pretty good job. So
how do this game? Why do they game with the process is kind of wrong on the computer? Why did they do that?
Right now I'm playing League of Legends. It's one of my favorite games. I'm actually playing against a bot, and I'm distracted, so I'm not actually doing so well. But otherwise, like, this is pretty much what you would see me do on a gaming computer. Test stuff out, and hopefully have really high frame rates like I am right now. I'm averaging 120 FPS, and that's only because I've actually locked the game to that frame rate, because I can get around 300 FPS playing League on maximum settings, which is a little bit absurd, and you don't really need that, so I've locked it. Building a gaming desktop has been a great experience. I'm able to max out a lot of my favorite titles, and I'll be able to play a lot of upcoming titles like Battlefield 5 and Cyberpunk 2077 without worrying too much about the parts I have. When ray tracing GPUs come out, for example, I'll be able to upgrade without having to buy a completely new system, and if I...
Depends on the CPU, depending on how old your computer is. So if your computer gets really outdated and DDR5 memory came out, you gotta upgrade your motherboard and everything else, man. You don't need to, like, you know, downgrade and keep using it for like 6-7 years old.
I have a problem down the line, I can always just swap out a part and have it serviced rather than losing my whole computer. And of course now we also have a computer to test and benchmark games here at The Verge.
Alright guys, hopefully this video doesn't get a strike. So thank you guys for watching, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and yeah, you know what, if this guy is from the Verge, I'm just gonna dislike that video. No, dislike. So, okay, let me just, see 1 second, okay. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching. Hold on. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. I'll see you guys in the next video, and peace out.